So I'm going to talk about the police perspective. How does this affect Calgary Police Service? What is Calgary Police Service doing, and what are we already doing in the community? What I wanted to start with is a small quote for you. And it comes from the First Policeman's Handbook, written in 1829 by Sir Robert Peel. This was issued to every officer in the Metropolitan Police, and this is what it said. It said, "It should be understood at the outset that the object to be attained is the prevention of crime. To this great end, every effort of the police is to be directed. The security of person and property, preservation of public tranquility, and all the other objects of the police establishment will thus be better effected than by the detection and punishment of the offender after he has succeeded in committing a crime. This should constantly be kept in mind by every member of the police force as the guide for his own conduct. Officers and police constables should endeavour to distinguish themselves by such vigilance and activity as may render it impossible for anyone to commit a crime within that portion of the town under their charge. When many offenders are committed, it must appear to the commissioners that the police is not properly conducted in that division, and the absence of crime will be considered the best proof of the complete efficiency of the police." So, terrorism and extremist behaviour is not a new phenomenon to us. David Rappaport suggests that there have actually been 4 waves of modern terrorism in our history. The first wave started in the mid-19th century with the rise and growing anarchist movement that carried on into the early 20th century. The second wave came in the preceding 2 decades after the Second World War, when we had ethno-nationalist activities across the old colonial worlds. The third wave of extremist and terrorist behaviour came in the 1970s, when we started to see the growing emergence of far left-wing groups in places like Germany. The fourth wave came towards the end of the late 1970s, when we started to see religious-based terrorism that toppled regimes across the Middle East. Within our own country, here in Canada, extremist behaviour is not new to us. We have suffered in recent memory with the FLQ crisis and the Air India attack. What is new, however, is the emergence of social media and the internet, and the growing trend of our young men and women who are prepared to travel around the world to fight in foreign conflicts or act upon those causes in the countries that they live in. There has been much study about what causes terrorism and extremism in the fields of political science, social science, anthropology, and psychology, and there is often little agreement. What is only just being studied now is what causes an individual to become radicalized to extremist behavior. The study of root causes can explain the motivations of a group, but there is no definitive formula to explain what happens to the individual. Additionally, what radicalizes somebody in one location does not necessarily radicalize them in another location. It is certainly not, as some suggest, a result of mental illness or predetermined personality traits. In fact, Dr. Martha Crenshaw and Dr. Gerald Post would suggest that the overriding commonality in extremist behaviour is the person's normality. We all have an important role to play in our communities in the prevention of extremist behaviour. What the experts do agree on is that those people that are at the greatest risk of becoming involved in extremist behaviour are those that are already marginalised or at risk of being marginalised within their community. Here in Calgary, we have approximately 1.2 million people, and this grows considerably when we include the outlying hamlets. The people of Calgary are the eyes and ears of the Calgary Police Service, and we have a good relationship with the community. Extremism is not solely a Calgary Police Service issue, and it is not solely a community issue. It is an issue that we all have a part to play in, and nobody can solve it alone. As a community, we should welcome any tool that is available to assist community leaders, teachers, and mentors to start dialogue and communication about extremist behaviour and just how destructive it can be for everybody involved. The Calgary Police Service has a very strong focus on the prevention of crime through the Crime Prevention and Reduction Continuum. And the driving force of that is in the Community and Youth Services section. Within this section, we currently have over 180 police officers and civilian members that are focused towards the prevention of crime. Of that, within that 180 officers, 85% of those officers actually work on the prevention component, and only 15% work on the actual enforcement component. We have our S4 programs and our school resource officer programs that provide a police officer in every elementary, junior high school, and senior high school in the city. We're looking at programs that can introduce those school resource officers now into charter schools and faith-based schools. And in the elementary schools, it's actually police officers that get to teach some of the lessons to young people and provide positive mentors and role models. Our multi-agency school support team involves police officers partnered with social workers. They work with children aged between 5 to 12 years old that have family issues or concerns, where we can get in there and change their lives and provide a different kind of life and a different structure for those young individuals. There's actually 15 teams in the MAST team. We have the Youth Intervention team. That involves our YARD program, which is directed at keeping youth out of gangs and turning these young men and women onto a different path. We have our Gateway program, where if a young person is charged with a criminal offence, we can work with them again with a social worker and a police officer, and if they complete the program, their minor criminal offence does not proceed to court. We have Power Play, which is a hockey program where we get young kids out, predominantly from the immigrant community, to play hockey and realise what that great love of the Canadian national sport is. We also have an identity-based wraparound intervention program that works with the first generation immigrant community to help them become Canadian. We have a youth mentorship team which includes 156 cadets aged 12 to 25 years plus that provides mentorship and development in leadership. And we also have our integrated school support project, which recognises that catching youth early is a greater chance of preventing problems in the future. Extreme Dialogue provides all of us with another tool in the toolbox that we can use to create safer communities, and provides a tool that is available to all who wish to use it. As a community, we can all prevent this crime, just as was suggested back in 1829. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Superintendent Yvon de Champlain. I'm a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police stationed in Edmonton. And I thank you for the opportunity to take part in this important discussion on preventing violent extremism. Our world is an ever-changing place, and threats to national security from individuals radicalized to the point of violence present a significant challenge to law enforcement around the world. The attacks in the past 6 months reminded us that we cannot be complacent when it comes to terrorism. We have been witness to incidents carried out by radical extremists in France, Australia, but also right here at home. The terrorist attacks perpetuated in October in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu and in Ottawa are clear examples of how suddenly attacks can occur and how Canada, which may have at one time felt it was invulnerable from such incidents, is no longer immune as a victim or a source for terrorism. This is the reason why Canadians need to be aware of the threats that exist in Canada, as well as the threats posed abroad, which include Canadians going overseas to participate in terrorist activities in foreign conflict zones. These foreign fighters seeking to travel overseas to engage in acts of terrorism are a major concern to the RCMP, as they represent a threat not only to the international community, but also to our country and our allies. In Alberta and within Canada, the RCMP as a national police force is tasked with being the lead law enforcement agency in investigating and preventing criminal acts which include terrorism. Our primary mandate is to respond to and reduce the threat of criminal terrorist activity through prevention, detection, investigation, and gathering evidence to support criminal prosecutions. Last summer was the first time that a high-risk traveler was charged with leaving Canada to join a terrorist organization. This was the first criminal charge of its kind in Canada. Since then, the RCMP has arrested and laid charges against more of these individuals who have either left Canada or plan to leave Canada to join an activity of a terrorist group. Our integrated national security enforcement teams, which are located across the country, including here in Alberta, both in Calgary and Edmonton, are responsible for investigating all criminal threats related to national security in Canada. Led by the RCMP, these multi-agency teams are made up of specially trained members of the RCMP, the Edmonton Police Service, Calgary Police Service, CSIS, CBSA, and other law enforcement and national security partners at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. I would like to point out that the radicalization of these individuals can occur in many circumstances as a result of a wide range of factors and influence, and it's by no means restricted to any single ethnic or interest group, any one religion, specific socioeconomic class, or single political worldview. This is why community engagement is so important. We are enhancing the long-standing relationship we have with Canadian communities and families, including the diverse ethnic, cultural, and religious communities. Any person, whether it be a parent, teacher, family member, or friend, can play a role in addressing the threat to radicalization, to violence, since that individual is often best positioned to identify changes in behavior, thinking, lifestyle, and habits of someone they know. Ultimately, the best chance of being successful in this intervention is by acting early in the radicalization of the violence continuum. Our collective goal should be to prevent our citizens, especially our youth, from engaging in violent extremism. Through community engagement and by building resilience against violent extremism ideology in individuals, families and communities, law enforcement officers can work with a variety of partner agencies to protect vulnerable individuals and prevent them from going down a path of violence, criminal activity that places them in extreme jeopardy. It is important to remember that radicalization to violence does not only impact an individual, it also greatly affects communities, the families and the parents who lose their children to terrorist organization. No parent looks at their child with the expectation that one day they will become a terrorist. The safety and security of citizens is the utmost important to us, and we take a number of active measures to ensure that the safety and security of Canadians is protected. However, law enforcement cannot effectively counter the threat of radicalization leading to violence through detection and disruption alone. We must also focus our efforts on longer-term preventative programming that aims to foster individual and community resilience to the dangerous narrative employed by violent extremist groups. This is why the RCMP has developed a program aimed at preventing terrorism. The goal of this program is to act before criminality occurs and to educate our partners about the resources that are available to assist individuals at risk of being radicalized to violence. By working with those who are familiar with individuals undergoing the process of radicalization, Law enforcement can work collaboratively with partners to protect vulnerable individuals and prevent them from going down a path of violence and criminal activity. This is why we are extremely pleased to be here today in support of the Extreme Dialogue Initiative, which will enable teachers across Canada to address the dangers of radicalization to violence by providing them with the tools and resources to engage in a dialogue with their students on this delicate matter. This new campaign will also assist our school liaison officers across the country in having a frank discussion with our youth and instill community resilience to these radical ideologies. Our citizens also need to know that they can play a crucial role in preventing the extremism that often results in individuals seeking to join terrorist organizations abroad. Canadians need to be vigilant and report any information on terrorism or related suspected activities to our National Security Information Network or by contacting the police in their community. We have learned and continue to learn from terrorist events that have taken place both here and in other countries, and are strongly committed in strengthening our national security program. Protecting our country's national security is a priority for the RCMP, and we take terrorist threats and radicalization to violence very seriously. There is no easy answer to solving the problem, but by working together, the police and Canadian public can minimize the risk and keep Canadians safe. Thank you.